Nonetheless, here I am in this remote location with this student debt and no job for myself, no available childcare. So now I'm a stay-at-home mom of 2 babies with a husband gone all the time. And then we got pregnant with our third. So we learned that we missed the WIC eligibility, even as an officer family. We missed it by $67 a month. But we were paying about $1,500 a month in student loans. So we were living, our monthly budget was more than $1,000 a month below the WIC eligibility line, yet we qualified for nothing.
Welcome to More Than a Milspouse, the podcast for military spouses who want to live with more meaning and less overwhelm. I'm your host, Christine, seasoned military spouse, mom of 3, life coach, and your guide to intentionally designing a life you're excited about as a military spouse. I'm here to help you get the clarity you need so you can get unstuck and unlock your purpose and potential. Because you, my friend, are more than a milspouse. You have something valuable to offer. And when you pursue the things that light your heart on fire, you trade frustration for fulfillment and isolation for a life of impact. It's time to discover who you are meant to be, because together we can change the world. We are currently working our way through the Milspouse Transformation series. Today's focus is on our body and what we can do to care for our physical health and well-being. Now, there are a lot of different directions that we could have gone with this episode because there's a lot to caring for our body. And there's a lot that goes wrong when we don't care for our body. But my goal is to provide practical takeaways for you from each episode. And often that means narrowing down what we are going to talk about. So today we are going to be talking specifically about nutrition and how to be healthy on a budget. Fueling our bodies is important, but trying to figure out how to eat well can sometimes feel overwhelming. There's so many different voices out there, and how do we know who to listen to and who can completely understand what it's like to try to be healthy in this military lifestyle where there's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of change, there's a lot of transition. And on top of that, trying to eat well when funds are tight can sometimes feel impossible. And that's why I'm so excited to introduce you to today's guest. As a family nutrition expert and researcher, Heather Campbell has spent her time and energy helping families connect with what they need to adequately feed themselves. And as a military spouse, she had spent her time and energy advocating on behalf of the 1 in 4 military families plagued by food insecurity. She is passionate about educating military and civilian leaders about the needs of this community and used her own story to help other military families eat well when funds are limited. All right, Heather, welcome to the show. I would love for everyone to get to know you a little bit better. So would you just tell us a little bit about yourself? And then I would love for you to share a little bit about your military spouse story and what it was like coming into this lifestyle.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. Well, I guess having me here. Getting this opportunity to meet is really fun. I love this virtual component of our community, especially living in different time zones. I previously lived in Alaska, so I was like starting my day as everybody was taking their lunch breaks. So I really love when we get to connect with different people and bring in these ideas and, tap into different expertise in our community. So thanks for having me. I'm a registered dietitian by trade. That's what I was going to do when I was a grown-up prior to marrying the military, right? We all have this goal of what we think our life will be, and then it shifts a little bit. My background is in pediatric and family nutrition. And before I worked in nutrition and was a dietitian, I actually worked in personal finance. So those skills have all come in really handy being married to the military. I'm married to an active duty Air Force member, and we have moved quite a lot. We have 3 very busy kids, and we've been primarily one income as a household for the last 10 years. So I'm really thankful for my training and my background and how it's come into play, but it hasn't made it necessarily any easier to navigate some of those tricky parts of caring for our finances and caring for our body. But I have an advantage that I have professional background that I can pull from to sort of bring in resources and know how to manage that for my family. So it's been a lot to navigate. I love it. Life is busy. I'm never, ever bored in my house. There's not a lot of quiet moments, but even with all the stress, we have a really beautiful life and a beautiful family. And we're very thankful that we get to do this life together.
I love it. I have 3 kids as well, so I know how busy. We just had this conversation, my husband and I, the other day, talking about what's going to happen in the next season when we PCS this summer. And he's like, trying to figure out what I'm going to do, what I'm going to be involved in. And he's like, you're not going to be bored. I was like, no, I am never bored. There is always something that I find to get involved in. But I love, as you talked about your background in personal finance and your background in nutrition and how all of these pieces start to come together. So talk a little bit about what led you to become an advocate specifically for nutrition, military families, and in the area of military food insecurity.
Well, as a young, I guess, graduate, right, to become a dietitian, I'll start there. It's very similar to social work. So it requires an undergraduate degree, a graduate degree, and supervised practice, and then you pass boards. When you're a nurse or you're a teacher or you're a physician or a dentist, you have to pass boards. So as a medical provider, I had to pass boards, and I had 1,200 hours of supervised practice in all different areas of nutrition, community nutrition, clinical nutrition, research, public health, all kinds of stuff. And I was actually in graduate school. I went from undergrad straight into a doctoral program and studying pediatric pulmonary nutrition support, specifically in cystic fibrosis. So a very, very specific, very complex form of nutrition support down to the molecular and cellular level. So, secret, I'm a huge nerd and I love data, and Excel is like my best friend, right? So that's where I was, right? I'm in graduate school. I have this full ride. I'm studying for my doctorate. I'm doing clinical research. And then I meet this guy and everything flipped on its head, because to finish a doctorate was going to be another 4 years of living long distance to finish a degree in clinical research that requires grants and requires, clinical boards and all this stuff to approve your research. That career was not going to be available as a military spouse. I know this because I'm a military kid. I've been a military groupie for my entire life, and now I lead my own band of military groupies, right? So I didn't know how hard it would be, but I knew that was not going to be a viable career option. So I converted my work to a master's degree and left school, left early, and married this cute guy who lived at the beach in Panama City, Florida. And within 2 years, I was a stay-at-home mom of a 1 and 2-year-old, and he was deployed. And then we moved to a remote town where we could not find work for me that would cover the cost of childcare. And now we've got student loans and one income. And even as an officer, young officers, if you've never looked at the pay scales, anybody who's listening, I recommend that you look at all of our young service members, anybody who's in their first 5 years of service, enlisted or officer. It's adequate for one person. It is not super great for two, or in our case, four. Our family grew quicker than we anticipated. That was not in the plan, which is kind of a theme of our military journey. But
we can all relate.
Yeah, nonetheless, here I am in this remote location with this student debt and no job for myself, no available childcare. There's very limited childcare options, no mom's morning out or drop in or anything like that. So now I'm a stay-at-home mom of 2 babies with a husband gone all the time. And then we got pregnant with our third. So we learned that we missed the WIC eligibility, even as an officer family. We missed it by $67 a month. But we were paying about $1,500 a month in student loans. So we were living, our monthly budget was more than $1,000 a month below the WIC eligibility line, yet we qualified for nothing. So as I sort of navigated that, it was very stressful. It was a very hard time in our parenting, in our marriage, in our lives. But as we sort of got a few years in and we relocated and he promoted and things just got a little more breathing room. We came up and were able to sort of assess the damage of that season and then start saying like, why was it so hard? Why, when I have a background in personal finance and a background in nutrition, did we still struggle? And if we're struggling as an officer family and I have professional expertise, what are my community members doing? What are my peers doing? How can we help? Where is the disconnect? What are we missing? What resource do we need? What education, right? This is that researcher brain kicking in like, wait a second, hang on. Now that I know that this is a problem, we have to get to the root of the problem so that we can start addressing where solutions need to happen, right? That led to accidental advocacy. And as you learn more about it and conversations get elevated, eventually now I've worked on a brief that went to the White House Hunger Conference. I've met with multiple legislators. I've met with leadership in the Pentagon, and I've had this really unique opportunity to bring in my lived experience with my professional expertise, all while still somehow navigating being an unemployed military spouse. It's a very weird place to be a nationally recognized expert, but then, also at the end of the day, like I'm in carpool line, and we're navigating one income. So it's been a lot to learn and not something that I saw my life going towards when I was, in grad school or even when I left to marry this cute guy. This is not what I thought it would turn into, but here we are.
Yeah, I got to that season of life with littles, and partly because of the lack of childcare and partly because the lack of paid maternity leave, I called myself an accidental stay-at-home mom because that was never my intention. And yet that's where I found myself in that season of life. And what I always talk about is how we're able to find purpose in each season and how we can use our experiences to help others. But that doesn't always translate to a paycheck. And when we live in a
Right.
culture that places such an emphasis on finding value in how much you earn, that can be really difficult. And I think what you're saying is a testament to you can be making a huge difference. And that feels really good. And yet there's still that sense of, is my work valued? Because I'm not getting a paycheck for what I'm doing.
Absolutely. There's times, where I just feel like, gosh, I'm just trudging uphill in waist deep mud and this is exhausting. Are we even getting anywhere? And then I'll go to Washington, D.C. and I'll have a meeting. And I had somebody recently tell me thousands of military families owe you so much and they have no idea. Hey, we changed this piece of legislation language based on what you've been reporting to us. Hey, we visited this or we looked into this and what you said was true. And this is the action that we're taking. Those are those really validating moments. But then at the end of the day, I've got like social media influencers who are promoting things, who are getting paid, and I'm trying to like literally change an entire system of support for our all volunteer service. And so sometimes it does feel really exhausting. And I've recently had a shift in my mindset about that 100 years ago, right? 100 years ago, early 1900s, 1920s, we had all of these women who were promoting women's suffrage, right? They wanted women's rights, all these things. The only people who were really able to promote that and use their time and talents and resources to advocate for a community were women who were wealthy, women who had their children taken care of, their houses taken care of, and could afford to not work, right? They didn't need mom to be sewing or working in a factory. And so, when I sort of shift that mindset that while money is tighter with one income than it would be with two, it really is a privilege to be able to use my time and talent and resources on behalf of the greater good. Do I think I should be paid for my expertise? 100%. But there's a lot of freedom and power in knowing that I get to pick up projects that I want to pick up. And if I don't agree with what it's doing or what it's promoting or what it would cost my family in energy and resources, then I don't pick it up. And that's freedom to grow as a professional and to learn lots of new things like about legislation without the pressure of employment or worrying about losing a job. So while I would love to someday have a big girl job and do something with all of these things that I've learned, it's really, really neat to be able to work without the pressure of needing my income, because currently the military income that we have takes care of all of my family's needs. And so I get to do the things that I feel called to do, which is really special. And not everybody gets that opportunity.
Yeah. And it's really not about having the income as much as it is about having the life balance and having that freedom, that flexibility to create a life that truly is fulfilling and makes an impact. And at the end of the day, that is what really matters. Now, I know lots of us are trying to make ends meet, and whether that means trying to save the cost to be a one income family because we're in this place where it just is not feasible for both of us to have incomes, or we're working a job where we want that flexibility and we don't have it. One of the first things often to go is the focus on ourself and our physical health and well-being. And so I would love for you to just talk for a few minutes first just about this concept of being healthy and what that looks like to you.
I think that, being healthy can be somewhat misguided in media or in our community of we think that it's one way, and we know as we get older, as we live more decades, that isn't always the best picture of health, right? Case in point, I have a very small frame. I've always just had a very thin frame. I don't gain strength well, which was difficult when I was doing gymnastics and doing lots of lifting. It's hard because I don't gain strength well, right? So I have this very thin body frame. However, I had heart surgery 5 years ago. Lots of people don't know that. Lots of people don't realize that, right? So health doesn't always look a certain way. My husband is a giant human being and is exponentially healthier and stronger and faster than I am and better at taking care of himself. So, you have to sort of look at health from a holistic perspective of not only physical appearance, but energy, rest, stress management, finances, and like you said, creating the life that you want to live, creating a life that you enjoy and not being so busy preparing for the future, right? Like I said, we paid off student loans with one income. You don't want to be so busy paying off the student loans that you forget to live life in the season that you're in, and everybody's balance looks different. Now, I don't recommend living on credit cards and in debt and above your means. I don't think that that's the end of balance you want to be on. But I've also seen families that are so worried about being frugal and saving money and putting it into the bank because they have this picture of a bank, right? That they swing too far the other way. So you have to find that balance. And that comes with your mental health, your physical health, and the way that you're eating too. Some families really love to cook everything at home. Some families eat out more, but you can really find the balance of where it works best for you, that you're feeling good, that you can do the things that you need to do throughout your day, and that it fits within your budget and your goals and your schedule. That's where you're going to have the sweet spot, and it's different for everyone.
No, that's really good. And really focusing on what it looks like to feel good throughout the day and to not get to that place of feeling so fatigued or burned out or overwhelmed that you find yourself not able to fully enjoy life, or to get to this place where we're so busy and we're trying to do all these things and we're not able to embrace what is and really be able to love life right where we are today. So when we talk about trying to be healthy and have energy and be able to enjoy life, what are some tips that you have for us?
Well, I think anytime you think about energy and your body, right? I like to use the idea of a car, right? When you have a car, now we've got more electric cars, so think either charging your battery, but you have to refuel the energy source. So whether you've got a gas tank, a diesel tank, or you've got electric, you have to regenerate that energy. Right? You can't just like use an electric car forever and then like never plug it back in and let it literally sit still and recharge, right? And so same thing with gas, you've got to refill the tank. Well, think of your body as needing refilled, both in energy, right? Calories are a unit of measurement similar to kilowatts or volts. Calories measure energy, and it measures energy in our bodies. So you can't just not give your body calories. You can't just not give your body nutrition. But similarly, you can't just not give your body rest or not give your body stress management, because what happens when we don't refill the tank, right? The gas light comes on and it's burning on your on your dash, and you're like, oh, yep, I should get gas. And you keep going anyway, you're going to end up broken down. And then you're going to have to call in extra resources to get you going again, right? The same thing happens with us. If we're neglecting any of those check engine lights within ourselves, then we're going to end up broken down, and we're going to need to get extra resources to get on the road again. So when we're talking about fueling yourself well, you have to make sure that you're paying attention. I know for me, when I get very, very stressed or very worried, my appetite goes way down. I get a very nervous stomach. I get knots. I feel really nauseous. So then I don't eat. So then my energy goes down because my gas tank is full. So then I get more worried that my energy is down, and then I don't eat because my stomach gets worse, and it's this spiral, right? So I know that about myself. Not everybody's like that, but I can start to recognize now when I'm entering that spiral, because I have to intervene and make sure that I'm taking care of myself well. So, when you talk about fueling your day and fueling your body, you have to know what that balance is of literally fueling yourself well, but also making sure you're resting.
It's really starting with that recognition and taking that time to get to know yourself and to be aware of what's going on, so that you notice when something starts to feel off, when something starts to feel different, when there are all of these external factors causing more stress, and you start to notice that you are thinking or behaving in a different way. And it's easy to get sucked down into that negative spiral and like, well, this feels off. And then this happened because of that. And now this is off. And then I get to this place where we can very quickly become unhealthy. So I think that's really great for starting with just that awareness and that recognition of what's going on inside of us. Now, when we think about fueling our bodies, there are so many people out there telling us, do this. No, this is the right way. You need to eat keto, or you need to like cut out carbs. You need to like be all plant-based. And it can feel overwhelming. And we hear so many different things that we get stuck and we're not sure what we're supposed to do. So, what's your advice there?
My advice is generally we're going to talk in the bell curve, right? Think back to like high school statistics. Like, this is the bell curve. There's outliers. This won't apply to everybody, but in generalities, you want to follow the My Plate eating pattern. It comes from the USDA, the US Department of Agriculture. They're the ones who, when we were in school, back in my day, it was a food guide pyramid, and it was like these puzzle pieces that made like this little triangle, right? Well, they've redone the visual, and it's literally just a plate. And the idea is that half of the plate is full of fruits and or vegetables, and the other half is shared with your grain source or your carbohydrate source and your protein. One thing I really love about this visual is that it's not specific to like, yep, it's got to be meat and bread and this and that. It's nope, half of it's fruits and vegetables, whatever kind of grain works for you that you like to eat, because you should like what you're eating, right? So whatever works for your body that you like eating, and whatever protein source works for your body and you like eating. And when we think of that visual, it's not just for today's lunch or today's dinner, but it's the general pattern, also called diet. It's the pattern of eating. So maybe Friday night looks a little crazier. You have pizza and soda and you guys have movie night. But if your general pattern of 21 meals a week, right? 21 meals a week look pretty much the same in the overall pattern, then you're going to really start to notice that baseline of making sure you're getting in all of those nutrients from different colors and textures of fruits and vegetables, and that good balance of energy and bone and muscle strength from grain and protein. And anytime you have a change in your routine, I always recommend trying to eat in your normal eating pattern, meaning if you're going on a road trip, if you're PCSing like a military family, if you're going on vacation, know what those normal things are that are part of your body's sort of baseline, and try to maintain those as much as possible. When we travel or we have big changes, part of the reason some people get traveler's tummy or start having a lot of problems or make huge, lifestyle changes and they're not sustainable is because they change too much stuff at once and our body freaks out, right? So for me, I know that when I travel, I'm going to prioritize going into a gas station and getting some Greek yogurt. If that's the only place I can go, a gas station getting Greek yogurt, and most places will have bananas. I know if I have a banana and a Greek yogurt every day, my belly's going to be, it can take pretty much whatever else I give it the whole rest of the week on vacation. But that goes back to knowing that baseline for you and your family. What's your normal routine? And then how do you maintain that? And making sure you're following that my plate visual is going to be a really great way to sort of start off in getting that good balance.
No, I think it's great advice, especially when we talk about PCSing and taking these trips, because I know I've talked to so many other spouses and it's like, okay, we're PCSing. I'm going to gain 5 pounds through this PCS because you don't have your stuff, your kitchen's not set up, you're on the road a lot, and it feels really hard to maintain some of those healthy habits. Plus, when you add in that stress of moving, then we tend to want to go for that comfort food and what feels good in the moment. So yes, PCSing and trying to eat well is challenging sometimes, but it definitely can help us navigate a stressful time.
Well, and that's where you get that balance, right? Of what's that comfort food, but also bringing in some of my normal routine. So, hey, I know that today's an 8-hour drive day, right? I said we moved from Alaska last year. We've driven from Alaska to Alabama, from Alabama back to Alaska, and Alaska to Virginia. So I have crossed the continent 3 times in a vehicle. This last time we lived in our car for 5 weeks, and then we were living in a hotel for 7 weeks. So I went 12 weeks without my normal kitchen. So I get it. So you have to find those ways of like, all right, today's an 8-hour drive day. We're doing 500 miles today. I know that we're going to have dinner's going to be something at a restaurant when we get there. Lunch is going to be on the road. Okay, for breakfast, let's make sure we're going to do a smoothie and we're going to do some cereal with some fiber. And whenever we stop for gas, I'm going to run into the Walmart and get the pre-cut apple slices, right? It's just finding those ways to bring in those normal rhythms of your day, knowing full well that I'm going to drive through fast food on the road because there's different fast foods in different areas of the country that I don't get, right? When we're going through Canada, I can get Tim Hortons for breakfast because I can't get that in Virginia. When we're on the West Coast, I can get In-N-Out Burger because I can't get that here, right? I'm from Nebraska. I'm going to get a Runza when we're going through the Midwest. So you have to know what those things are like, hey, that's a priority for me. That's going to be really fun. That's going to fill my emotional bucket a lot to have that simple thing that is really comforting and really fun. But how can I also make that work for my budget and my body so that I don't feel like garbage and my bank account doesn't look like trash?
Well, and it doesn't have to be all or nothing because sometimes we can get into that mindset of, well, I made a bad choice here, so I'm just going to forget about eating healthy until I get settled or until we're done with this PCS or this trip or whatever the situation is. And so it's really about that balance of saying, yes, I want to be able to enjoy some of these things that I can't get anywhere. Like you in Alaska, not having Chick-fil-A, and I'm sure it feels good to be somewhere where you can get Chick-fil-A again. But
I can. There's 2, like within 10 minutes of my house. Like, all right, which direction are we going today? Where am I going to pick up my ice cream cone when we're out? Like that's really fun.
it is.
So I'm not going to buy ice cream and serve it at home because I'm going to say, hey kids, today was crazy. You guys just got off the bus. Get in the car. I'm going to go get ice cream. Do you want to come get ice cream with me? Because I'm going whether you come or not. So do you want to go with me to get ice cream cone at Chick-fil-A? That's really fun. That's something that we enjoy, but it's also out of the norm for our, we don't have ice cream every day after school. So that's where you get that balance of like, hey, this is a really fun thing we want to do. But I also know it's not going to go well for us if we do it every day.
So let's talk about when we are trying to eat healthy on a budget because we all know grocery prices are way up. And sometimes every time I go to the grocery store, I'm like, how in the world did I just spend that much on groceries? So I know it can be tempting to say, how can I cut costs at the store? And sometimes that means getting the unhealthy, easy to make products that don't feel like it costs as much. What can we do to eat well on a budget?
Well, the first thing is to know, what does your family actually eat, right? Always start there. Make sure that any meal, breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack, Any meal that you're serving always has something presented for each member of your family. For example, last night we had egg roll in a bowl. I know that my daughter doesn't particularly love that. That's fine. You know what she loves? She loves edamame. You know what? Costco has a microwave edamame. So we get the Costco microwave edamame and we, microwave that up and we put some sea salt on it. And I know she's probably not going to eat the egg roll in a bowl great, but we've got something that I know she's going to eat. Tonight we're having tacos. I know that one of my kiddos doesn't love fish tacos very well. So we're just going to make chicken to go with it. Hey, choose your adventure. We're having tacos tonight, fish or chicken, I don't care. So you have to know what your family will actually eat, because it is not going to help if you try to make all these healthy changes and you're buying food that nobody eats, because that is not going to help you, one, reach your nutrition goals, or two, reach your budget goals if you're buying things that end up in your trash can. So that's the first thing, is always making sure you're starting with a base of foods your family will actually eat. And then you can start paying attention to what is your limiting factor for your family. What's your biggest barrier? We were in a season where I had ample time at home in a remote location, and the budget was super tight. I made a lot more things from scratch in that season because I had 3 babies under 4 and a husband who was not home and 3 hours of daylight. And it was -30. So I was inside of my house and I had time to do stuff like that. Now I have 3 school-age kids and the budget has some more wiggle room where my schedule has no wiggle room. So now my limiting factor is time. So I need to choose things for my family in this season that help me save time that also still work for my budget. Things like pre-cut apple slices, which I don't buy pre-cut apple slices, but I do buy baby carrots because I'm not peeling and slicing up baby carrots or regular carrots. I'll buy Publix as a store here. They have carrot sticks or the carrot chips or the veggie tray at Costco. Like anything that's ready to eat in this season for my family works really well. So you kind of have to know, what's your baseline? What will you actually eat? And then where is your limiting factor? Is it budget or is it time? And then choosing those things that work best for you. I have a really great shells and cheese recipe. Love to make it. I also still buy Velveeta regularly because it's delicious, right? I would not say that Velveeta is the picture of health, but we really, really love it. But I'll serve it alongside, our main food and some roasted broccoli and something else. So at that point, I don't really care if they're having shells and cheese, right? So you have to find that balance of how are we following that my plate sort of method of eating, making sure we're getting fruits and vegetables on the plate, but also in a way that works for our budget and works for our schedule. So that's the first thing is, knowing your limiting factor and how can you navigate around that. And when we're looking at produce somewhere like Alaska or Hawaii, you're not, or anywhere in the country, you might not have access to things that you normally are used to eating. So it's really important with wherever you happen to be living to know what grows in your local area and what the seasons are. If you try to buy a fresh watermelon in January, you're going to be paying a premium. If I try to get a pineapple in Alaska, I'm going to be paying buku dollars for it, right? But I could get wild Alaska blueberries super easy. So you have to kind of know what's in your region. And as a military family, that means more brain work. But once you know what's in your local region and what's growing seasonally, then you can sort of take advantage of, apples are on sale right now because it's the fall. Looks like we're eating different apples every week because every week the apple sale changes, right? So by knowing what's on sale, it gives you that variety in the food that you're eating and also helps save you some of those dollars. Similarly, if you want, cranberries in July, you're going to pay a lot because cranberries don't get picked until after the first hard frost. So you're going to pay a lot for cranberries in July. They're going to be way cheaper in December. So I recommend making your cranberry dishes in November and December. What does that sound like, right? And your watermelon in the summer, what does that sound like? So when you look at those regular patterns of eating, what works in your local area, that's going to help you get lots of nutritious foods and also save those dollars when you're checking out at the grocery store.
And sometimes there are not a lot of good, fresh vegetable and fruit options. Like when we lived in Guam, everything lasted maybe a day before it went bad. And so sometimes you have to get really creative about how to get healthy foods on the table. And we did a lot of frozen vegetables when we lived in Guam.
Yes. Frozen veggies and canned for fruits and vegetables are a fantastic option. Canned, of course, are going to be shelf stable. So if you happen to live in a disaster zone, like a hurricane area where I've lived previously, where I live again, or anywhere that you might, have tornadoes, that sort of thing. Having canned foods is a really great idea. Just have some on hand. You also can PCS with them really easily, so that's great. But having canned fruits and vegetables are going to be a lot cheaper than fresh, and they are packed at peak freshness. So whether they're frozen or whether they're canned, that's at the peak freshness. So you're going to get lots of nutrition for a lot more affordable price. And so that's where it goes back to knowing, what does your family actually eat? Do I need to buy fresh carrots if I'm going to turn around and cook them? No, I don't. I can buy the frozen carrots that are a fraction of the price, that are going to go into this casserole or go into this pot or go into this stew, right? So knowing what you're going to be using things for. Now, you don't want to count on canned or frozen for a really crisp texture. That's not the way that it works. The canned are going to be softer because they're canned in liquid. Frozen, by the way the biology works, when water expands or when water freezes, it expands. That bursts the cell walls. So fruit and vegetables that are frozen, when they thaw back down, are going to be softer than a fresh. So if you want something crisp, fresh is going to be the only way. But anything else, if you're sauteing, cooking it up, fresh is going to be great, but frozen and canned are going to be the best way to save money and still get you that really great nutrition for whatever you're making for your family. So I actually prefer frozen veggies and the little microwave packs. I spend the extra, like 37 cents to get the steamer pack, where I don't even have to put it in a pot. I just put it in the whole package from my freezer in the microwave and click the button, and it makes it for me. Those are my favorite in this season of life.
Especially when you know that's something that your kids will eat.
My kids will eat anything with like butter and shaker cheese on it, like the Parmesan shaker cheese. Like I could put butter and shaker cheese on a shoe and I think my kids would eat it. So if I microwave some veggies and I put a little butter and shaker cheese on them, like they're going to eat it. It's great.
Yeah, so let's talk just briefly about getting your kids on board with eating healthy, because you've talked a lot about knowing what your kids will eat. But some of us have kids that only like macaroni and cheese and chicken nuggets. So, how do we get our kids to try new foods and really get them to explore new foods that will fuel their bodies?
There's a couple of different things to think about in this conversation. First of all is knowing that kids are going to copy what they see, right? My daughter takes like a rock outside and will pretend that it's her phone and starts taking pictures of things, right? She's done that since she was little because she sees mom with her phone taking pictures of them. So kids are going to copy what they see. So if you happen to be a picky eater or a limited eater, they're going to copy that. Likewise, if you aren't eating the same foods as your kids, meaning if you're not offering them the same foods that you're eating, it's going to be really difficult to convince them to eat those things. So, if mom's on this really restrictive diet and like, I can only have, I don't know, whatever thing, I can only have white steamed rice and 3 sprigs of broccoli, right? Or something. Well, why would I eat these carrots and chicken? Like, this isn't even what you're eating, mom. So having that uniform plate, and that's going to go back to making sure there's always something that someone will eat at the table. So then worst case scenario, like last night, I know my daughter ate edamame last night. She loves edamame. It's great, but we still served her the new food. And, I don't typically say it's a food kids don't like. It's a food they haven't learned to like yet. It can take up to 24 times of exposing kids to a food before they agree to not hate it. That said, they might have a food they just don't like. I don't like vinegar. So anything with vinegar, pickles, olives, yellow mustard, sauerkraut, like, is not for me. And I don't like mushrooms. I don't like the texture. I'll eat them in stuff, but I'm not going to like add them to my salad at the salad bar. And I'm almost 40. So, there might just be foods that your kids don't like. So sort of having that regular exposure where they're going to be able to copy the things that you're eating, you're regularly gathering, whether that's at your living room table, whether that's in the car, at the ball field, at the kitchen table. The location doesn't matter as much as the intentional pause for 5 or 10 minutes where we are going to sit down, we're going to connect with one another, we're going to build this relationship together. It's going to be over a snack or a meal or whatever, and we're going to have similar items on our plates. That's really going to be the best way to approach that. Now, that said, there are a lot of different families that have behavioral reasons, medical reasons, a lot of different things that truly need medical intervention. If you are not having success with getting your kids to try different things or different textures, that's where you really want to talk to your medical provider. You want to meet with a registered dietitian who has access to your medical records, because there could be something underlying there that needs to be addressed. But for the majority of families, if you're regularly having exposure, if you're gathering together intentionally to eat, if you're eating the types of foods that you want your kids to be eating, and you're willing to sit down and have those conversations and take that time, then you're going to start to reap those benefits. Not next week, not next month, but it's going to be slow and steady, but you're going to see that difference. Now, that gets into that like long game or short game, right? During PCS season, I don't really care. Short game is the winner. I don't care what you're eating. It's chicken nuggets and mac and cheese. But if I use that technique long term, it's going to be difficult to expect my kids to eat something else if I've always just defaulted to what's easy of chicken and mac and cheese. And now I am so surprised that, well, since they were two, I've been feeding them chicken nuggets and mac and cheese. I don't know why my 5-year-old won't eat the meal we eat. This is all they eat. So there's also some accountability on us as parents, right? Now, that's not the same in every situation, but I have absolutely worked with families where mom or dad or whoever the caregiver is not willing to engage in conflict with the kid. And like, I just don't want to listen to him whine about it, so I'll just give him whatever he wants. And it's like, okay, well, he's 4. That I don't think that's going to go well when he's 14. So you kind of have to pick your battles and know your child. You're the one who's the expert on your family. You know them better than anybody. You know whether it's a medical issue and something of severe concern, or if they're just not having it today and you're not picking that fight, right? There's a difference. And so it's really important, again, to know your baseline, know your people, and know what works best for you.
Yeah, that's so important. And the more that we can make this a lifestyle thing, the more that we are moving towards not only helping ourselves be healthy and show up for ourselves, we are setting that lifestyle that's going to make a difference in the lives of our kids long term. So what I love about everything that you have said and shared with us today is that you absolutely get it. You know what it's like to be in this military lifestyle, to have these challenges happen, and what to do with that, how we can still set ourselves up for success and set our families up for long term health and success. So, I would love if you would just share a little bit about some of the efforts you are doing to support military families, and then let us know how listeners can connect with you and learn more about what you do.
Oh my goodness, all the things. So I don't sit still well. That's what my dad told my husband before we got married was, good luck with her. She doesn't sit still well. So being a stay-at-home mom of 3 kids was like, well, I have a brain that needs to be used, and Bluey and peanut butter and jellies are not doing it. So what can I do, right? And then I keep like, I can help with that. I can help with that. Currently, most of my efforts go towards advocacy, and that's meeting with legislators, meeting with DoD officials, and educating about military families and the 1 in 4 families struggling to put food on the table. That's systemic. That's literally trying to change systems, which takes years and lots of repeat voices of multiple people saying the same things. On the local level, working with local families, nonprofits, organizations, which keeps changing because we keep moving, but wherever I can find that need of, okay, who needs to be fed and where? Who needs support? How can I help? What can I do? Whether it's my neighbor, whether it's helping at the food bank. We're starting a share table at my kids' school currently where kids will be able to give their excess food to this share table. And then kids who are still hungry can go up and take food, right? So we've got a nonprofit from Washington, D.C. that is sponsoring that for our school. So those are just a couple of the things I'm currently working on. Some things I've been working on long-term. I volunteer with the Military Special Operations Family Collaborative, and I'm a co-author on our book that we put together called The Warrior's Table. And it is all about the importance of military families connecting over meals. That project was sponsored by Harvard University and the Family Dinner Project. And it was a 6-author book where we all shared recipes and tales of success. And I share a story in there. One of the stories is how I forgot to put the noodles in lasagna, and I served it as lasagna dip, and that's just what we had. And I had like a house full of company, and it's fine. So I love that book. You can find that at their website, or you can just Google The Warrior's Table and you can get a copy for yourself or anybody else. And then also working with Independent, which is a nonprofit geared towards military and first responder spouses and their wellness. So financial, relationship wellness, spiritual, stress management, physical, all of the things. But we've created a workshop called Fuel the Homefront, which specifically addresses how to feed your family well on a budget. It talks about how to budget, how to stretch those dollars, how to use resources like food banks and WIC, what to put on your plate, how to plan it, and how to not have it feel overwhelming. So you can search Fuel the Homefront with Independent, and you can find that link as well. If people want to connect with me, my social handle is Glory Nutrition. I live mostly on Instagram, although there's a little bit on Facebook. And professionally, you can look up Heather S. Campbell on LinkedIn, and you will see so many things over there that make it look like I'm a grown-up with a real job and not just like a super volunteer.
You are absolutely a grown-up doing amazing things in the world. I will have those links in the show notes for everyone. But Heather, thank you so much for coming on today and just sharing your expertise and knowledge with us.
Absolutely. I'm glad to help. Thanks for having me.
Heather has done so much for military families and specifically to address the issue of food insecurity in the military community. Her workshop, Fuel the Homefront, is available through Independent. And as you learned from last week's conversation with the executive director of Independent, it is in the process of being turned into a course for military families. So stay tuned for updates on that. But what I want you to walk away with today is the question, what can I do to better fuel my body? Because when we take care of ourselves, we feel good, we have energy, we are able to show up as the center of the home. And when we don't take care of our bodies, we struggle, as does everyone around us. So what is one thing you can do to take better care of your body? All right. In this series, we've talked about the importance of rest. We've talked about military spouse wellness and taking care of our mental and emotional health. We've talked about our physical health. There will be no episode because of the week of 4th of July, but the following week, we are coming back to talk about the third pillar, if you will, of taking care of ourselves. We've talked about mind, we've talked about body. Now we're going to talk about spirit, our spiritual health, which is probably the area that we have the most confusion around because research indicates that our spiritual health is important, but what exactly does that mean and how do we put it into practice as military spouses? That is what we are diving into next time on More Than a Milspouse. In the meantime, go download the Milspouse Transformation Guide, which helps you assess the 10 key areas of your life and begin your own journey of transformation from the inside out. It is absolutely free, and you can get it by going to the website or by clicking the link in the show notes. Until next time, may you live filled, fueled, and full of joy.